Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to another Red Pill Religion podcast. This is another installment in our Escaping Atheism series. In fact, it's part of our series called Deflating and Escaping Atheism. However, before we begin, I want to remind everybody, Red Pill Religion. On Red Pill Religion, we are dedicated to the proposition that belief in the supernatural and the transcendent is perfectly normal, totally healthy, completely rational, and thoroughly evidence-based. So please support our work on redpillreligion.com. Joining me as per usual this week is going to be our friend Rob from Deflating Atheism. Say hi to everybody, Rob.
Hi, everyone.
Please be sure to check out the Deflating Atheism page where there's all kinds of fun stuff on there all the time. Also regularly making fun of the atheist follies. Now, online atheism, I will comment, I don't know if you've noticed Deflating, but they're in a lot of trouble these days. Not only is YouTube getting tired of them, but they turn on each other constantly. Have you noticed?
Yes. Every conference is turning out to be a fiasco these days.
Well, I think that's because the atheist worldview being completely incoherent on its own, they're left with nothing but what they hate and what they're against. They have no actual positive agenda, so they have nothing to say on most matters except religion sucks and sky fairies and stuff like that. Now, we've actually come out and we've been defending them somewhat. For example, in the particular case of this video that we're doing today, this video, which is on our channel, I've got to find a copy of it. Where did I do with it? Oh, there it is. Let me bring that into screen here. The sandboxed and censored Godless Cranium video. Now, we wound up mirroring this because we do support free speech. We always have. We think the atheist community has been the worst offenders on defending free speech. The so-called skeptic rationalists have been the worst. But in fact, since we believe free speech is a God-given right, it has to be protected. So we wound up mirroring this video of Godless Cranium, sandboxed and censored Godless Cranium, and just said we'd do a response, which is the correct thing to do when you see something that you think is wrong. Now, and as I said, since we're doing it, we're going to go ahead and respond to it as well. I'm going to repeat, the Godless Cranium should not be censored. He should not be taken off of YouTube. I do hope, he starts thinking, well, gosh, if I favor speech, I've got to favor the people who are critical of me and my worldview, and I've got to be able to put up with people who say I'm wrong. So anyway, let's look at this anti-religion video. I'm not actually sure what caused it to be banned. I mean, I don't appreciate it, so we're going to make fun of it here, but let's just give it a look. Okay, here we go.
Religion in U.S. worth more than Google and Apple combined. That's crazy. That's just in the U.S. Imagine how much it would be worldwide. Faith economy worth $1.2 trillion a year, more than combined revenues of 10 biggest tech firms in America, study shows. Religion in the United States is worth $1.2 trillion a year, making it equivalent to the 15th largest national economy in the world, according to a study. The faith economy has a higher value than the combined revenues of the top 10 technology companies in the US, including Apple, Amazon, and Google, says the analysis from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Imagine a world where that money went towards humanitarian aid or medical research.
Okay.
How do you know it's not?
Go ahead.
A lot of that money is going to medical aid. A lot of that money is being used to help people.
In point of fact, in point of empirical fact, most of that money is going to humanitarian causes. In the meantime, atheists like you, Godless Cranium, and the friends who helped you make this have had more than 10 years to start putting together charitable efforts. I remember 10, 11 years ago when it started, they used to whine, atheists do charity too. The religious people don't want to work with us. Well, actually, they would want to work with you if you weren't mean and nasty. And in fact, you find plenty of non-religious people working at our charities. But the fact is, you guys have had more than a decade to start putting together charities, and all you really do is scream at the charities that already exist. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you go ahead and do any research, you will find, for example, that in the case of the Catholic Church, which we're both members of, the vast majority of that money is in hospitals,
yes,
schools, orphanages, free medical clinics, and other educational projects. You know, the average priest makes about $40,000 a year in the United States, which is not rich. It's not poor, but it's not great money. Now they have a little more on top of that because, you know, they'll typically have living quarters and possibly a car that the parish provides to them for their work, but none of them are rich. You hear about all of these priceless relics that some churches have, and they don't all have those. You know, I don't think there's any priceless relics in my parish, but what are they supposed to do? Just sell them? I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of them are holy. And then what good is done? Okay, you sell it and you use the money. Now you're done. This really is. Do you people, Godless Cranium, do you and your scummy religious hating friends ever get skeptical of this sort of thing when you read it? We're doing the humanitarian aid stuff, bud. In fact, you're up there in Canada. I'm not sure where you are, but I can virtually guarantee that if you're ever homeless or need help paying a gas bill or just don't have any food, going to your local church, you'll find help for all of those things. You'll even find emergency rent assistance. And yes, in some cases, they're getting cooperative grant money from the church, the government, to do that. But even then, when they do, it's because they're the only ones providing the service. You people have had more than a decade to get into charity work, and all you do is crap on the people who are actually doing charity work. And you wonder why you guys are so widely disliked. Have you thought about this? Why don't you have any Christian friends, and why aren't you helping them with their charity work? It would be my question. Almost all that money is going into nonprofit causes, into charitable causes.
Yes.
And by the way,
it has to be pointed out that neither Max nor I are big fans of the Joel Osteens of the world or the Benny Hinn's of the world. But most religious people have a problem with the Joel Osteens and Benny Hinn's.
That's right. That's right. All right, now I've got some kind of weird music playing here, probably from this
The Christian Post.
The Christian Post, which I was going to go into. I mean, since most of that money is demonstrably used for the humanitarian purposes you say you want it used for, you have no bitch. And in reality, while there's a lot of skeevy, scummy charities out there, Christian charities, by and large, according to Forbes and many others, Christian charities, by and large, are the most reliable in actually delivering the aid where it's supposed to go.
And there's been study after study after study that has shown that Christians or religious people in general, corrected for every sort of socioeconomic group there is, religious people are more charitable than atheists and agnostics.
They are.
Study after study.
Not only are we better at science, because we generally are, we're better at charity too. Maybe you should learn from us. Okay, let's try watching another minute or so of this. There's some particularly odious stuff about stem cells at the end. I hope we get to it. Let's get about another minute of this.
Wouldn't that be something?
Video.
Imagine a world. Imagine a world.
Very impressive. I wish I had these art skills.
Imagine a world where you never read the headline, Faith Healing Parents Charged with Murder in Death of Premature Twin Baby. The Mitchells, driven by religion, failed to send for medical aid when their newborn baby stopped breathing. The baby died mere hours later. If not for the intervention of the medical examiner, her twin sister may have died as well. This is nothing new. The mother's own sister was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the death of her newborn son. Worse, the majority of states have laws protecting parents and religious leaders from prosecution for child neglect, abuse, or even death for withholding medical care on religious grounds. And abetted by this legal cover, at least 140 children have died of perfectly treatable medical conditions in the United States from 1975 to 1995. Imagine a without needless suffering from faith healing.
Okay.
Imagine totalitarian scumbags like this atheist asshole having political power at all. Sorry, that's where I'm going to start with this motherfucker. You're an asshole. You're a horrible bigot. Go ahead, Rob. I'll have more to say about this horrible bigot when you're done.
Okay, well, I don't really have much to say except that like religious people are like 90% of the population. So of course you're gonna have a few bad eggs who do a few stupid things that are gonna use their religion as an excuse, or gonna do stupid things or stupid or horrible things in the name of religion. But it's such a tiny fraction of society that believes in like faith healing, and 140 deaths over the space of 20 years. I mean, do you know how many people die every year because of like inappropriately applied pool covers or something? 140 deaths over 20 years. I hate to say it's a drop in the bucket. You can't use an example like that and extrapolate it to mean that religion is horrible. It's completely
No, and this of course also elides the fact all the people who died who had scientific ideas on how to cure somebody who wound up killing them anyway. What you're ultimately doing with something like this is you're trying to set up a class of people who are going to decide for everybody else what is scientific and what's not, what is religious and what not. You're trying to set up something where you, the atheist, are going to impose your values in what you say is science and what is and isn't appropriate medicine. I'm sorry, I will stand more with parents who may make poor choices than I will with these ideologues who claim to be science experts. And by the way, almost no atheists who talk like this are science experts.
yes.
This man is going to decide for us, well, you can't withhold medical treatment for religious reasons. Well, what if I don't have religious reasons? What if I have what I consider to be scientific reasons?
Yes.
Is that okay? And how often does that happen? In fact, how many people offering miracle cures that are supposedly scientific get killed every year in the name of this scientific rationalist cure that comes along? Give me a break. Moralizing atheists are the worst human beings on the planet because they only apply their morals and they apply them on only on religious people. It's yes. I mean, you're a scumbag, sir. Okay.
Well, before I think we need to both say this before we get too far into this video. But I mean, what is the purpose of this video? Religious people have something that they believe to be true, and they act in accordance of what they believe to be true. Yep. So, what exactly are you advocating? That these people be stopped by force from giving their money who they want to based on what they believe is true? What course of action are you really recommending? This Stalinist course of action where religion has to be suppressed by force? If not, what is the entire purpose of this video?
And who gets to decide what is religion and what is not?
Yes.
Who gets to decide what is science and what is not? I guess the atheists will just do it, because implicit in all this is that atheists are the default rational human beings on planet Earth.
Who are completely unbiased.
Yes. Huh?
Who are completely unbiased and are governed only by reason and evidence. Oh, I bet you abortion is going to get thrown in this mix, and he's going to say that everyone who's against abortion is because of religious reasons.
Sure. I'm just going to put that again. Nobody ever got killed doing what they called scientific research or using so-called scientific medical treatments. I bet you that's never happened in history, right? Yeah, I bet it happens more often. I know a lot about the medical industry, including how medical research is done. I'm not saying there shouldn't be medical research, but you could stop pretending that these faith healing crazies, and they are crazy, although, by the way, there's also ample reason to believe that people have been healed miraculously. These people just want to deny all evidence that miraculous healing occurs, even though we have ample evidence that it does. Okay, let's go ahead and imagine this godless world where these totalitarians will tell us all what is rational and what is not. Here we go. A vegetarian, she calls herself.
That's bubonic dance.
I bet we got some interesting stuff coming here. Let's see.
Imagine a world where the bigots had to admit that their gay hatred is their own idea, where they can't say it's not them, it's just their God's commands. Imagine a world with no religious arguments against gay marriage, where nobody was stoned or beheaded just for being queer. Imagine a world where nobody had to be ashamed to reveal their true self. Imagine a world with no religion.
Imagine a world in which scumbag atheists, bigots like Bionic Dance pretend that homophobia is caused by religion,
yes,
even though science has clearly shown that homophobia is genetic and natural. In fact, ironically, homophobia has been proven to be genetic, whereas today, as of 2017, homosexuality itself has not proven to be genetic. But homophobia is. In fact, homophobic atheist regimes are the most murderous and oppressive towards gays. And religious regimes, or historically religious regimes, are the places where the whole idea of gay rights was able to come out. You only have gay rights because of the Christians' bionic dance. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You only have gay rights because of the Christians. And by the way, as soon as we stop caring, you're going to stop having them. I am sick of atheist bigotry on the gay issue. It's rooted in pseudoscience and pseudo-history.
Yes.
Gay people, you're welcome from the Christians, from the gay rights, just like you're welcome for all the free hospitals that treated you during the AIDS hospital. That was the Catholics. And
Yes.
just like we're welcome from modern medicine in general from the Christians. These are horrible people, huh?
New atheism has been successful at kind of scooping up all these grievance groups and using grievance as a way of kind of prying them into atheism, which is why you find so many gays who are atheists these days. Not because they're privy to any sort of argument that shows that God doesn't exist. It's just there have been some demagogues who have pried them into atheism, and it's really unfortunate that we've allowed that to happen.
Oh yeah, and they've been turning against the gay males, and they've been turning against the gay whites. And they've been doing that because the whole gay rights thing, it increasingly appears, was never about gay rights. I'm sorry, I was pro-gay rights back in the 80s before any of these people were even born. There were real issues there. And you know what? Even there mostly wasn't religious people who were giving the gays the problems. Hatred for religion is interesting in gay circles because up until maybe 10 years ago, seeking help and support in the Christian community was one of the major goals of the gay rights movement. Then they got some success. Then they began backstabbing Christians. And that's been happening. And I'm sick of being backstabbed. I really have been backstabbed. I've had to walk back on a lot of my previous support of the gay rights movement because I realized they were lying all along when they said they just wanted to be left alone. Now, clearly, more than that was going on, and it's really, I still have gay friends. Heck, one of my friends started one of the first gay bars in San Diego. But this atheist self-righteousness, atheists, you have no right to self-righteousness on the gay issue at all. You didn't do shit about the gay issue. It was mostly Christians that made that happen. And again, you're going to lose the gay rights if you keep treating Christians like garbage and lying about us like this. All right, let's keep going.
Imagine a world without religious wars, without violent acts of terrorism rooted in brainwashed indoctrination, where we unite to build a world worth living in rather than suicide bombing a crowd to escape it.
Another atheist who won't own the historic atheist violence, atheist witch hunts, atheist mass murders, and atheist wars of persecution against religious people. Seriously, you people, you're disgustingly ignorant. It's why we're right to call you bigots. You are. You're bigots. You're ignorant bigots. Go ahead.
Max and I only believe in things based on scientific evidence, so please show us the clinical literature describing this phenomenon of brainwashing. I'm still waiting on that clinical literature. Also, it's hilarious that they just pick up on any sort of like grievance. It's just like suicide bombing, and they just blame religion on it. It's like, well, what is it? Are they Amish suicide bombers? I mean, what's going on? Are they Mennonites? No, it's coming from a very particular sector of the religious world, and I mean, certainly communist regimes have been responsible for their share of terror. Look up the propaganda of the deed bombings of turn of the century Paris. Those are all atheists who are setting off bombs in public places. So again. Atheists don't own science, and religious people don't own terrorism. But you can go back.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I have a slide here I like to use, which shows the most butchering dictators in history. Every one of these a secularist. Everyone a secularist, including Hitler, including Tojo, including all of them. Most led anti-religious pogroms, doing what all the people in this video do, spreading hate propaganda. And by the way, kids, I'm not being emotional. I'm accurately describing you all as a bunch of bigoted hate propagandists, because it's what every one of you is. Ignorant as fuck, easily able to fix your own ignorance, but not willing to do it. And most of you will not address your critics either. You run like Steve Shives. You run like Stargate of Akkad. You run like all of them because you can't face your critics. You can't face the heat. You're lying about religious violence. In point of fact, secular violence and anti-religious violence, which is only committed by atheists, far outstrips the terrorism. Which is why I'll say again, I don't care who hears me say this. I may be conservative on some issues, but I would rather be ruled by Muslims than any atheist I've ever met in my entire life. And that's a lot of them. And certainly I'd rather be ruled by Muslims than anybody involved in the making of this video, at least that I've seen so far.
There's a great Wikipedia page called the non-anthropogenic causes of death in world history. It's great for putting lie to this kind of canard that religion is the greatest source of war in the world's history. But yeah, of the top 12 of anthropogenic sources of mass murder, a religious cause does not even crack the top 12. I think the highest ranking one is the Taipei Rebellion. But otherwise, it's all genocides committed by atheists, basically, or for secular reasons.
Yeah, in point of fact, while Islam has the most troubled relationship to violence of all the major world religions, it still pales in comparison to secular governments, which have been routinely the most murderous and the most oppressive. And by the way, they're becoming more murderous and more oppressive even here. Supposedly Europe, look what's happening to Europe now. It's not just an Islamic invasion. A lot of the Christians in Europe now feel very besieged, very put upon, and are trying to take control back from the secular regimes. This myth that Europe is all secular, is all atheist, is wrong too. But let's go ahead, let's see a little more of this festival of ignorance and hate from the atheist community.
Imagine a world in which people didn't claim jurisdiction over the experience of others based on what they've taken on faith.
You mean like atheists? You mean like atheists who do that constantly? They have so much faith in whatever their atheist masters tell them is science, it's ludicrous. And they won't own it. I don't know what else I would say to that.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about. I just take issue with his, I guess what I'm assuming is a pejorative reading of the word faith, which is not what he thinks it means, but yes.
No, I know. He doesn't know what the word faith means. He's been indoctrinated to mean it means believing things without evidence. And he just
no evidence, yes.
But she does all the time, with atheists do all the time. I've rarely met an exception. I mean, this whole video is more or less without evidence. They haven't bothered to go looking for any countering information at all for their worldview. They have no skepticism at all about each other or themselves or their masters. Let's see one or two more of these.
Imagine a world where L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, would have never been born.
L. Ron Hubbard was an atheist,
yes.
Is an atheist religion. Sorry to tell you.
Scientology is an atheist religion. It is as hostile to the world faiths as all you people are. Scientology teaches that the world faiths were engrams that were implanted in human beings by an alien race. So it attempts to trivialize the world faiths. It wants to basically eradicate them every bit as much as you atheists do. And there is no transcendent creator in Scientology.
No, in fact, that you get to the top and it turns out they tell you that there's no such thing, that it's all bunk, there are no gods, there is no God, all religions are false. It's an atheist religion. And they use a lot of tactics as atheist recruiting sites like Atheist Republic do. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and they don't worship Xenu, okay? Xenu is a bad guy. Xenu is a cosmic enemy, so there is no God in Scientology.
No, and they'll tell you there's no God in Scientology. So you get over yourself. Scientology is an atheist cult, just like Richard Dawkins runs an atheist cult, and Sam Harris. All right, let's keep going.
Therefore, we would have never been introduced to such a stupid, illogical, dumb belief system. But instead, this religion today is worth over $1.75 billion. This money, if L. Ron Hubbard would have never been born, could have easily went into scientific endeavor for kids, for school for reason and philosophy and logic.
And who's going to run them? You, sir? And what are you going to do? You going to lie and say there's no evidence for God? Because there's a lot of evidence for God. You're going to lie and say that prayer doesn't work? Sorry, there's a lot of scientific evidence showing that prayer works. There's also lots of scientific evidence showing regular church attendance is good for you and not bad for you. Why aren't you discussing any of this while you spew hate at me and my child who I take to church, sir? All right, let's try keep going. Huh?
I like how he teaches, that teaches reason and logic, just with everything that came from a religious philosopher or logician. All those parts are clipped down, I'm sure, in his idealized world.
Yeah, he'll be in charge of educating our children.
Yes.
He and people he approves of will be in charge of educating our children because they know what logic is and evidence is. Yep, there we go.
But too bad. That would be a good world to imagine.
Imagine a world where nothing said or written was taken on the authority of the speaker or writer, where every claim was accepted only proportionally to the supporting evidence, where such evidence and the interpretation was continually challenged and therefore improved, where the support for the claims was not only readily available to everyone, it was frequently accessed by everyone.
Oh, shut the fuck up!
Imagine a world wherein atheists did not routinely get in the way of that process like they do now, where they do so much damage with their scientific naturalist ideology, where they do so much to shut down inquiry. I know this guy, he's Apologia, and I've called him out publicly, and I'll ask him again. I want you to challenge, if you will, Rupert Sheldrake's The Science Delusion, the banned TED Talk that P.Z. Myers and Jerry Coyne got yanked from TED. Tell us what's wrong there. Truth is, endless evidence shows ideological atheists in your circle, Mr. Apologia, get in the way of scientific inquiry all the time and go out of their way to obscure ideas they do not like. So imagine a world in which atheists didn't do this sort of thing. Also imagine a world without Christianity. You'd have none of that science you like. And yes, that's because Christianity logically leads to science. Atheism does not logically lead to science. Okay, let's keep going.
When I imagine a world without religion, I don't necessarily imagine a perfectly peaceful world. What I do imagine, however, is a world where we are living in a reality where people are killing over their imaginary friends every single day. I don't imagine a world where people would always have reasonable discussions despite a difference in ideas. But what I do imagine is a world where people aren't scared for their lives when they criticize or discuss others' ideas. A world where we don't make excuses for extremists because someone offended their religion. Imagine a world without organized religion, particularly Islam. A world where freedom of ideas doesn't mean a risk to human lives every single day.
Imagine a world in which atheists didn't spend the last 10 years brutally harassing, censoring, and lying about Christians. Wouldn't that be a much better world?
Blackmailing them off YouTube, harassing them, yes.
Yes, all of that which has been going on from some of the highest named YouTube people. Imagine we didn't have to put up with the violence from atheists. Like, TJ Kirk, who threatened to break my jaw, or one of Sargon of Akkad's little goons who actually threatened to punch out one of the Red Pill Religion people for questioning the integrity of atheists.
Or the Sutherland Springs shooter,
or the Sutherland Springs shooter.
Stalin's persecution of Orthodox priests. I also love how our little spiel assumes that God is an imaginary friend. Neither Max nor I advocate anyone believing in any imaginary friends. Now, if it is your position that the God of the Bible is an imaginary friend, that's on you to prove it. Until then, everything you just said is just completely vacuous because it's based on an unestablished premise.
That's right. Please show us where anybody's killed over an imaginary friend. Well, I don't know. There was Jim Jones, the guy who fed all those people in Guyana.
Who was an atheist?
Who was an atheist. That's because the world is full of atheist serial killers. And they frequently say anti-religious stuff when they do their killing. And they often talk like everybody in this video. Seriously, you're a bunch of vicious, nasty, hateful people, and you don't deserve any respect. Sorry.
They always assume their own conclusion. They always assume everybody is operating from their premise that God is an imaginary friend. We are not defending anyone believing in an imaginary friend. We are not defending anyone killing in the name of an imaginary friend. If that's your claim, prove it. Until then, shut the fuck up.
But apparently you have no problem with killing someone who thinks they have an imaginary friend, because atheists do that all the time, and atheists are the only ones who do that. When are you going to own that? Any of you?
Yes.
Imagine a world without hijab, where you can see the wind blow through an Iranian girl's luscious, beautiful hair. Imagine a world without niqab, where you can brush your hand across her smooth skin on her face. A world without burqa, so at the very least, you can see her eyes. Or better yet, how about imagine a world without Islam?
Well, I know why this video was sandboxed, because it's Middle Eastern porn.
Yeah, you know what? They probably got sandboxed merely for attacking Islam, because you don't get attacked for being nasty like this to Christians. But I will repeat my view that I would rather be ruled by Muslims than anybody involved in the making of this. And I will further, even though I see Islam as a really troubled religion and a real problem, but whatever. And as far as the hijab, the burqa, and all that, in most cases, those women want to wear that, and
yes,
they will tell you they want to wear it. And it's mostly their moms and their aunts and their older sisters who make them wear it when they're rebelling against it. What women in these cultures will tell you is that it ends the sexual tension and really cuts down the bickering and squabbling and competition between women, so they actually like it. You will find women of other religions who dress similarly, and they give the same reasons. Even in war-torn regions where they have the extreme versions like the burqas, those mark the women out as non-combatants and therefore not to be shot or blown up if possible. Yeah. In other words, while I don't particularly want to see the burqa or the niqab or the hijab all over the place, if you are a libertarian or someone who supports personal choice, why can't a woman dress that way if she wants to? There are benefits to it according to those women. Oh, are we going to listen to women? I think these atheists are probably all feminists, so I want to know when they're going to listen to those women. I don't think they will listen to those women because I don't think they give a shit about women. All right, let's play a little more of this.
Imagine a world where no one spends precious time